Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to approach a subject that's close to my heart, and that is the subject of control generally. Very popular with a lot of people who wish to have an indefinite amount of it, i.e., control, in all situations and all circumstances. So today we are going to look at that particular area of control and what it means and how we obtain it. And as always, you've probably realized, for those who have been following this series of talks, that it's not always that simple. For each action there is a reaction, and somewhere there is harmony and balance. So when we talk about control, we will also need to talk about responsibility in order to attain a mastery. So let me begin first of all by looking at some definitions of control. By all means, there are others, and one of the definitions that's out there is the ability to exert an influence over one's actions, including one's immediate actions and one's future actions. And if we are able to exert influence, willful influence, conscious willful influence, then we have some degree of control. Suffice to say that in terms of the definition, we also need to talk about the ability to influence others through our actions, and therefore not only are we influencing the environment by our actions and objects, we're also influencing others. This is a very, very important area, because many people are looking for this area of control and to how to increase it. Command and control and so on and so forth. So we hear a lot about that. People want to do not certainly want to be controlled by others, do not want to lose control themselves to either circumstances or others. People can become ill and seriously ill if they feel that they have no control over their environment or have no influence over it, or over others. So they become totally neurotic, some even to the point of becoming fearful and paranoid, thinking that there is something else greater than themselves that is exerting control over them. So this whole area of control is very important, and I'm sure I've only scratched the surface here. You can think of other examples whereby control is very important. Some say that control is power. Now, the definition of power is something else that we can look at. There are various guises of power. There is personal power, what we call magnetic, charismatic power. solely exerted by the sheer persona of the person who is exerting that influence. There is positional power and control exerted by one's virtue of being in a certain position. For instance, a general in the army will have greater power than, say, a soldier. And there is resource power. Someone who has the funds and the resources will have sway or have more power than someone who doesn't in certain circumstances, and so on and so forth. So we have here certain definitions and certain ways to look at power and to look at control, and the way to go about obtaining more of it, and so on. But one thing is certain, and if there is anything that we need to take away from this first section on control, and that is, in order to be able to control the environment and to control and influence the environment, including others in the environment, one has to know. This is very important. Information and data are extremely important in this regard, because with ignorance there is no control. If we don't know, we're not able to control anything. So one has to know. But one important caveat here is worth mentioning. What do we need to know first of all? First of all, the person who sets out on a quest to gather more and more control and power has to know that the first rule is to know yourself. Control yourself. Have power over yourself, including the power of restraint, including the wisdom that comes with it, and so on and so forth. And yes, have mastery over yourself before you begin even to contemplate having power over the environment and having power over the others. Because if you do not have control over yourself, someone else will control you. Someone else will have control over you. If you cede control, if you open that little gap, that little crack of saying, I'm not in control of this particular area, then someone will happily step in and say, I am, therefore I control you. And here we see how we move from looking for something that is quite valuable and that's very popular with a lot of people, i.e. increased control. And what we find is self-knowledge is controlling oneself first of all. And with that, we set ourselves on the path to increasing control, not only over ourselves, because it's a continual learning process, but also on our environment. And that particular act is moving us towards mastery of ourselves and mastery of the environment. Now, if we were to simply embrace this viewpoint of control, command, power, then, as some of you will probably say to me, and I can hear the questions already, well, hang on a minute, we know many people who've pursued that path, more or less attaining mastery over themselves as well in the process. But unfortunately, they have never really found the contentment that mastery brings with it, the equilibrium, the harmony, the peace of mind that's also present in there. And what is the reason for that? The reason for that is quite simple. The reason for that is that for every action there is a reaction. Now, with power, there has to be responsibility. With strength, there has to be compassion and mercy going alongside it. Otherwise, harshness, pure naked power, the boot of the Almighty against the face of the oppressed forever, does not condone contentment and mastery and equilibrium and harmony. It may seem like a desired quick fix, but it doesn't last in reality, and it doesn't endure. And the reason for that is simply because when we do assume control, we need one of the defining needs of assuming control is the ability to respond accurately. Responsibility, the ability to respond accurately to the circumstances. And some circumstances will require a harsh response. Other circumstances will require diplomacy. Other circumstances will require us to let go, and a more humane response increases our overall control and our overall power. So therefore, compassion, mercy, responsibility, these are not airy-fairy words that are simply out there to say, well, yes, in the name of equality and so on and so forth, we have to have a degree of responsibility and humanity. No. The reason for that, and the reason why responsibility is required in order for mastery to take place, is simply because if control and power run unbridled, unchecked, then they will find and they will come across a greater power and greater control that will stop them. That greater power and greater control will have the advantage of being a responsible power with control. And that is the difference between the two. The control that endures and the control that doesn't. Now, mastery is simply becoming a master. And a master is someone who's able to deal with all circumstances, all environments, all people equally at all times. So we see that within this realm of harmony and equilibrium, it is possible to have good power and good control exerted, because we all need it. And more importantly, it goes without saying that good power and good control is much more accepted when it comes from responsible people. Thank you.